This is True Multifamily, the show where we dive in on what really happens after closing a multifamily property. We're going to expose the role of asset manager. That's the person who has the responsibility of seeing the vision, executing the plan, and managing people, budgets, and timelines, all to deliver returns for our investors. These are the real struggles, the real victories, and the real stories of asset management. Welcome back to another episode of True Multifamily. I am here with John Casmon. John, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Hey, Justin, thank you for having me today, man. I'm excited to talk to you.
We met almost a year ago now in person, and it's been quite a crazy 2020, obviously, and excited to get to chat with you today. So looking forward to it.
We met a week before the world shut down.
Yeah, so. That was it. I remember like people were talking like, what's going to happen? Is this a thing or is this going away? And boom, that's it. So, John, let's just jump right in, please. Tell the audience who you are, what you do, and we'll just go right from there.
Yeah. So, my background is in marketing. You could think of me as a marketing and multifamily professional. So I've basically melded my marketing experience with my multifamily experience to help people understand how to run a business. I do it for myself, my partners, both active operators, as well as my limited partners, my investors that we work with. And I teach other people how to do the same thing. Any business is really about marketing when you think about it. And when you think about the growth. So if you can understand how to communicate, how to grow, how to get your message in front of people, then you are a great marketer. And that's really what it boils down to. Outside of that, though, just to give you some more context, I was working in corporate America. So I was working in advertising, in marketing, corporate America for about 15 years. And I worked at General Motors. So I worked there from 2007 to 2011. And right around, about a year or so after I started, we started having some financial issues. And those financial issues, started making headline news and led to, our company becoming pretty much the face of the economic collapse. And in that moment, it really crystallized to me that no matter what success I was having in my own individual career, it could get snatched away from me by means that I had no control over. And that really bothered me. So I wanted to transition into a role or into things where I had more control. I wanted passive income. I wanted to, have more say in what happens. And real estate afforded me that. So I began investing a couple years later and started with a 2-unit building that I house hacked, meaning I lived in one unit, rented out the other. I bought a 3-unit building 2 years later. And then I went to a commercial property. I actually refinanced that first property and bought an 8-unit building. Nice. And from there, I said, okay, this is great, but I'm still using all of my own money. And I can't buy another property until I save another, 6 figures, basically. And I wasn't solving the real issue. The whole reason I got into this was to insulate myself from potential financial ruin if I lost my job. And I was making money, I had some good equity, but I didn't have enough cash flow coming in to replace my day job. Nor did I really have a plan to do it because I was just saving as much as I could to go buy another property. And I just realized there had to be a faster way to do it. So started connecting with other people, learned about apartment syndication. And the next deal we did was actually 192 units. Now, wow. I'm a general partner in that deal. It's not, a deal I did by myself. I'm a general partner. But nonetheless, that opened up my eyes to the possibilities that you could go out there if you approach this as a team sport. And multifamily investing is a team game. I don't care if you're buying a property with all your own money. You still have teams, right? You still have your broker, your lenders, your property managers. You still have a team. So understanding how to control the team or how to lead the team, that's going to make or break your success. So that really kind of took us down our pathway. Today, we're partners in around 900 units and continue to grow that portfolio.
Wow. So much growth there. And I want to take a few steps back and just dive down into that a little bit. And don't let me forget, because we want to get into the marketing for sure. But you said, you had an 8-unit, obviously looking at the cash. At some point, we all sort of look around and say, okay, my money's tied up. I can calculate how much I'll get back. And we're looking at years, months, years, decades, who knows, right? So how do I get to that next level? How do I go buy the 190-unit apartment complex with what I'm making. So you said you're a general partner on that. Can you just explain, what that means to be a general partner on that project? What you brought to the table? Is that something you're still working with? You mentioned the team. So who else is involved? Just give us some color on everything involved in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, just to get to help people understand the mindset, because this was not something, even when I bought that 8 unit, if you would have told me this would be my next step, I would have laughed in your face and said, that's ridiculous. It doesn't even make sense, right?
Right.
I couldn't even fathom that. I didn't even know people were doing that. You know what I mean? It wasn't a real thing to me. All I wanted to do was go from an 8 unit that I owned 100% with all of my own capital to maybe a 20 unit where I owned 50% of it and I got somebody else to put up a good chunk of that capital. That's
Yep.
all I was trying to do, right? So to scale to something massive like that took a while. One, to wrap my head around the concept. Two, to picture myself operating in a larger deal like this, and then three, to have an opportunity where it made sense for us to move forward. So that was 192 units down in San Antonio. We partnered with another group that we had gotten to know really well, and we basically built a relationship with them where I felt very comfortable moving forward. They were like-minded. They were a little bit of further ahead of us at that time, where they kind of had a pretty nice size personal portfolio and were ready to scale up. They had been a general partner on other deals as well. And they were ready to kind of be lead operators on the deals they were looking at. And we just felt a lot of comfort. We love the market. So we love Texas. Obviously, Texas is one of the hottest states in the country and has been for 7 or 8 years now, if not
Yep.
more. So we love that aspect of it. And with my background in marketing, market research was something I was, pretty strong at. So looking at the demographics, understanding where the growth trajectories were, migration patterns, just really understanding all those things. I knew that this was a market I wanted to be in. I'm not going to invest in Texas. There are a lot of people in Texas to compete with. Me going down there by myself made no sense. So I was not going to try to buy property in Texas by myself. However, having another operator who lived in Texas, who were building relationships with the brokers that were touring deals every day and looking at opportunities, for them to be the lead, find one that they finally like, and bring us on board, that made a lot of sense for us. And ultimately, it gave me some comfort because I was able to come in as a partner where my value was still there. I could tap into my marketing background and leverage some of that value, but I wasn't responsible for 100% of the execution. So that was a great way to kind of, get the ball rolling. I mean, yes, I had my experience, but 192 units is a little bit larger than an 8 unit.
Yeah.
And just by, 186 units,
No big
184
deal.
units. So just a small difference in unit size there.
Right.
But nonetheless, the biggest thing was really just having that team. And I think before it was really me kind of playing coach and quarterback and offensive line and wide
Yeah.
receiver.
All of it.
And,
Right.
I mean, I played pretty much all the roles to truly being in a team environment where there were multiple general partners, multiple vendors that we spoke to, and a lot of investors that we could talk to and bring into the deal. So being a general partner, my role is really to be a liaison between the investors and the operators. It's also to assist the operators with marketing. That's everything from market research, understanding the comps that are happening. What are our competitors doing in the marketplace? What incentives are out there right now? What kind of renovations are driving rent premiums? So I wasn't driving the construction, but more
Right.
so, hey, should we be thinking about a dog park or some other amenity?
Yep.
Taking a look at those things and understanding the impact it can have. And then, quite frankly, just being a partner, just being a sounding board. So we can sit
Hmm.
down and, as we go through our monthly conversations, understanding what's happening with the property. Hey, did you try this? I spoke to someone else and, they're getting this result. Did you consider this? Maybe we should look into it. Because I host a podcast as well, I speak to multifamily investors all the time.
Yep.
So I'll hear about an idea or a strategy that someone is having success with, and I can bring that to my partners and say, hey, you know what? I just talked to such and such. They're doing, for instance, short-term rentals.
Hmm.
A couple of years ago, short-term rentals, if you were to take a couple of units out of your, if you got 192 units, to take 3 or 4, convert them to short-term rentals, you may be able to see a crazy growth in your NOI, because these are renting at premiums that are basically 3 times the amount you would get in a normal monthly
Absolutely.
apartment. So there are things like that, strategies like that I would bring to my operating partners. And for me, it's a matter of make sure I have the right partners who will listen to these ideas and vet them and implement the ones that make the most sense.
Well, and that's sort of where I want to take this conversation because, I think a lot of our audience is probably closer to the 8 unit version of John Casmon than the current version of John Casmon. But of course, a lot of them want to get there. And so they're faced with a decision, right? Do I go buy the 20 unit, a 40 unit? Do I keep doing what I'm doing, or do I join a team? And I know that you and I, have both joined teams and have had a lot of success with that. But how does someone, John Casmon with 8 units or any of our listeners, in that range, how do you approach someone that's going to go buy a 192 unit complex that's got a track record and show them that you can be a valuable member of the team? What is it how do you position yourself? How do you have that conversation to show that value?
Well, that's a really good question. I would start by, and I'll start with my story, and then I'll answer your question directly. That was never my intent to keep it, in mind, right? My intent
Mhm.
was not, hey, you know what? Let me go show these guys that I could be a great partner. Like that wasn't the intent. So for me, it was more organic. I met these guys at a conference. We got to know each other over 7 months. We talked multiple times. And as a matter of fact, what ended up happening is when I launched my podcast, I had them on, or I had one of them on as a guest, and we just were catching up. Hey, what you working on? I'm working on this. And I said, oh, that sounds great. And for me, I realized an opportunity where I could add value potentially, and it could add value to me because we were having a hard time finding deals in our market that made sense for us and the investors that we were working with. I liked that market a lot, and I knew that I couldn't invest in Texas, or I wasn't going to try to invest in Texas by myself. So I just simply volunteered to say, listen, I would love to partner if you find something that makes sense. I'd love to come on board. I can help with this, this, and this. I had already demonstrated my value through, the months of conversation. And quite frankly, by creating a platform where I invited them to be a guest. And that's a great, powerful tip. If you're starting out, add value to someone else, and the value I added initially was, hey, I'm launching this podcast. I want you to be one of my first guests. The first guests, those episodes, they get a lot of exposure.
Yeah.
So that can be a really big value add for someone. Now, again, I didn't do that with the intent of impressing this person so we could be partners. I had no idea what he was working on. It was just relationship building. And I would say that's the biggest thing. Now, if you're further along in your own internal discussion and you've made a decision to say, hey, you know what? I want to be a general partner on a larger apartment deal, or I want to get a mentor, or I want to, have someone help me or partner with me on a deal. What I would strongly suggest you do is you gain clarity of how you can be of value to someone else. Do not just randomly tell people that, hey, I'd love to help, or, yeah, do you need help with anything? I'm free. I've got some time. Tell people specifically what it is you do well, and then demonstrate that capability for them. If I were going back, if I were to say, hey, you know what, I'd love to help with the marketing, I would actually develop a rough marketing proposal, or I would do a market analysis or demonstrate some market research and send it unsolicited. Hey, I was doing a deep dive of the San Antonio market, looked through these 5 different reports, and here's the opportunities that I see based on the market data.
So good.
Show the
Such
action.
gold right there. I agree. I give that advice a lot. And, frankly, someone will come up and say, hey, let me know if you ever need any help. And that's pretty much the worst question I can receive because I don't know you. I don't know what you're very good at, and I don't know how you can add value. But someone drops a market study on my desk and says, hey, I know you're in this town, and here's what I'm seeing, and here's how I can add value to you. Now we're going to have a very serious conversation because you're demonstrating value right off the bat. So I love that you did that. I love that you showed value in the podcast. You're giving them a platform, right? Everyone wants to talk about themselves, especially if they're doing deals and raising money. There's always something they need to get out, a message they need to get out, right? Everyone wants to be heard. So you're giving them a place where they can do that. So even if nothing else, you created a platform, you said, hey, I value you. I value the conversations, the relationships that we've built, and I want to help you by featuring your message as one of my first shows. So it can be very simple as that. It can be very in depth, but there's 100 ways to do it. And this is just one, marketing slice for it. But for anyone listening, figure out where you can add value. What is your superpower? What can you do? Maybe you live in a market where there are someone doing a lot of apartment deals, and you can go be boots on the ground and, hey, drove your property, saw there's all this extra trash over there, right? Maybe there's other ways that you can add value. It doesn't have to be marketing. So I love, that real estate allows us to be so creative, and there's so many things that have to be done, that, there's always an opportunity for us to add value and to bring in partners that can add value as well.
Yeah, let me give you a real example. This is, literally, as we're recording this, about 15 minutes before we hit go. So literally the call I had before this, I was on with one of my mentors, and I gave him basically a list of things that I thought he could be doing, and places where he can generate some extra capital, places for him to take his brand and his business and to grow. And I didn't ask for anything. I didn't want anything. It's just, again, you have to come from a good-hearted nature. What I would say is you actually have to take the action. If you want to add value to somebody, add the value. Don't tell them, hey, I can help. Hey, let me do this. Hey, no, just do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Just show up and do it. I used to still run a meetup, but we haven't been in person, obviously, in a while. And, or people used to ask me all the time, hey man, I'd love to help you with the meetup. And I'm like, cool. For me to think about how you can help me takes too much of my energy. And if I knew,
Agreed.
if I knew what I needed help with, I would have been more proactive in finding that solution. So if you really want to help me, just jump in and help. Get there early, set up the tables, get the sign-in sheet. Just show me that you can help. And then you'll be a part of the team. Like, hey, this guy helps every week. What do you need? Okay, now I'm ready to help you because you helped me already, right? And one of the people who helped me run the meetup, that's exactly what happened. She came up after one of the earlier events and said, hey, you know what? I came here and I noticed the sign-in sheet, wasn't out until the middle. I'll bring the sign-in sheet next month, and I can do this, and I can set up a newsletter for you and get this going. I said, cool. I didn't have to think. She took a lot of the work off of my plate. That's adding value. So you have to truly add value to people, and you'll get something out of it. And you kind of have to know what you want to get out of it, but it starts with adding value first. Figure out how you can add value. And honestly, just hitch your wagon to the right horse, right? If you can find the people who are doing things, moving, shaking, and going places, align with those people, connect with those people, and truly add value to them. And I think it'll help you in the long run.
Well, listeners of this show and have heard me talk about that before, because as you know, my partner, Matt used to run the meetup, and I showed up and started stacking chairs exactly like that, running the front desk. Who wants to run the front desk? Nobody. But when you've got a few units and you want to hang around the people that are moving and shaking, as you said, do what you got to do, help out. And from both of those, usually the person running the meeting has probably got some good stuff going on. There's a reason they're in that role to run that meeting, and the connections, because they're thinking next level about the connections and value and education. So why not connect with the person that's running a meetup? Go to your local meetup, find out who's running it, or start your own and connect with those guys if you're looking for someone to work with.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So John, I want to get into marketing a little bit, because as your role on the team for apartment complexes, you told us that you help out with the marketing and doing market research, of course. Can you break down for us some of the things that maybe we're not doing, or maybe we're not thinking about, as far as how we can better market our properties or bring that sort of marketing perspective to running our apartments?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? Because I think a lot of times, especially if you're in a smaller portfolio space, like 6 to 10 units, 6 to 12 units, a lot of things you're doing are what we call kind of your blocking and tackling. So it's going to be, you're taking a look at your rents. When there's a vacancy, you're going to see, maybe you go to apartments.com or hot pads or wherever. You're going to get a general sense of where the market value is for your rents. You're going to put your property listed somewhere in that range and hope you get it rented, right? When you think of the marketing, I think a lot of times people don't understand the branding aspect of it. We have a podcast sponsorship with a company called RentSync. I want to be 100% transparent with that, but they have really helped me, even as a marketing professional, really see the true value of like branding at a bigger level. And I mean, if you have a 6 unit, you should be marketing even more, because you have the ability to stand out and create a brand that's different than every other 6 unit out there. So if you've got a 200 unit, 6 unit, all of these things apply. So the very first thing is branding. I think a lot of people misunderstand branding to focus on the logos, the color palettes, and stuff like that. That's a part of it, but it's really just an expression of the brand. The brand is everything that you create. It is the essence of that experience. It's how quickly property management responds to a request. How quickly does maintenance respond? What does the grounds look like? You talked about picking up trash. Okay, what does the property look like when I randomly drive by on a Tuesday afternoon? All of those things are the brand. And the reality is, we don't control our brand. A lot of people think they do, but you don't. Other people see what you put out there, and then that is the reflection of your brand. So I can control my messaging. I can tell you we have a very clean community. I can tell you that, we have state of the art technology. But if you show up and that's not what the experience you get, that's not my brand to you, right? Even if 90% of the time everyone else, that's the experience they get, that's not the brand of you. Think about Apple, think about Nike, think about Starbucks, and think about the experience. Think about the consistency of that experience. And that's what you want to do. So if you are an operator of a 4 unit, 6 unit building, you have the ability to stand out. One of the ways you can do that is with your leasing, right? So right now, where they're still doing a lot of virtual tours and more photos and videos versus the in-person tour, how can you stand above and beyond the competition? How can you make your listing pop and stand out in a professional manner, where someone gets the impression that they're going to have a completely professional experience staying at your property versus the mom and pop owner who owns the building next door to you? And that's going to come through in the way you write your posting. That's going to come through in the pictures, the video, if you actually offer a virtual tour. Because if I get a chance to do all of that for a 6 unit, I'm going to imagine you guys are going to answer my phone call or respond when there's a maintenance issue. If the website
Absolutely.
looks sloppy, if there's misspellings on the site, the pictures are a bit grainy, I'm getting the impression that you guys are probably not going to really take care of me when I live at the property. These are all components of the brand. So whether you're a small owner or a big owner, if you got 192 units that you're repositioning, if you're trying to push rents $200, $300, you need to demonstrate a premium experience. And that starts with that first interaction, whether it's on the website or whether that's driving by the property. So all of those things are really key. And I think it's one of the biggest things that we need to think about and keep in mind as apartment owners and operators.
Absolutely. I love all of that. I was just speaking to Gino Barbaro a few episodes ago, and that's really what he preaches, is the resident experience. And you're absolutely right. The brand is not just the signage and the logos and what color the buildings are, but the entire experience that the tenant goes through, from that first Google search and website visit, which I love that you pointed out about the photos and the easy to use site, all the way through the phone calls, how we answer the phone, how we interact, how we do our virtual tours. And then, when they're tenants, right, we've got to take care of problems quickly, right? We want great Google reviews from everyone that are not forced or bought. We want tenants to really feel part of the community, and feel like they belong, and they want to spread the word. And referrals are the best source for that. And you don't get a referral unless you're taking care of the brand and you're taking care of that tenant experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's spot on. And it's key because, again, it may feel like it's marketing, but it really is the essence of who you are, right? I mean, it starts at the absolute core of what your mission is, your vision is, and it's really just an expression of that mission or vision. If you don't have a mission or vision, that's going to be kind of clear too.
Yeah,
If I just show
absolutely.
you're just doing a job trying to collect the rent, that's going to come through as well. So, I mean, the more you can embody the spirit of what you want to see, the clearer and easier it's going to be to build a brand that can attract and retain these tenants.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, John, that knowledge bomb after knowledge bomb on this one, I definitely appreciate it. So much that we can all learn from your story and from your tips here. You mentioned the podcast. Please let us know where we can listen to you and anything else you want to promote. Now's the time.
Yeah, listen, the podcast is called Target Market Insights, the multifamily and marketing show. It's twice a week. We spend a lot of time talking about multifamily and marketing and tips like we just talked about there. And then for folks who are maybe interested in scaling up, working with investors, maybe being a passive investor, if you are interested in learning more, I do have a sample deal package on my website. So it can give you a great sense of things to include in a deal or things to look for in a deal, but you can get that at casmoncapital.com/sample deal.
Oh man, so good. Now I'm going to put you on the spot. I did not tell you about this ahead of time. We're going to go with a true multifamily tip. So you've got someone who approaches John and says, John, I want to get into multifamily investing. Give me one good piece of advice about buying apartments or operating apartments. What is your advice to that person?
All right. So I think the biggest thing is always have more money. You want to have proper reserves. You want to plan for taxes and insurance to be higher than definitely what the broker said, and probably even higher than you're projecting. So I think that's where a lot of people get nicked up. So make sure you have some reserve capital, that your expenses are actuals and not just some numbers you pulled out of your butt or, just came from the broker's OM. And I know you asked for one, but those are two. The third one that I would say is get the right team. And by the right team, you want people who have experience executing the business plan. So that's from your property manager to partners or whoever else you surround yourself with. You want to have people that have that experience. So you get the right people in there. They'll help you navigate all the rest of the issues.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much, John. Guys, check out John's website and company, Casmon Capital Group. Please make sure you check out the podcast. And John, thanks again, man. We'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Justin.
Thanks for listening to another episode. Check out our website at truemultifamily.show. And if you have an amazing story to tell, share it on our Facebook community, and you might just be the next guest on the show. We're also on all other social networks. Just search True Multifamily. I'm really, really proud to have this show produced by our company, On Air Brands. Check us out at onairbrands.com. We also have an incredible, unique podcasting event that we would love for you to be a part of. Check that out at podmax.co.